study, a hydrologic study, to look at the volume of rainfall and what impact it has. Ready, board?
Yep.
Good evening, board members and residents. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2015. I'd ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batanti.
Here.
Mr. Brado.
Here.
Mr. Caprell.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. York has asked to be excused. Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkest.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda with the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of August 10th, 2015, and approval of the bills in the amount of $762,185. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make that motion with the bills in the amount of $762,185.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Caprell. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on our agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, as you might recall, at our July, I believe at the July 27th meeting, we had discussed the issue of salaries, and we specifically decided not to discuss it at the August 10th meeting because we knew that not everyone would be present. Mr. York is not able to be here. I think it would be best that we discuss item C3 when we have the full board here, so I think we want to strike item C3 from the agenda. I don't know if there's any other changes or if there's a motion to approve the agenda minus item C3.
Make a motion to approve the regular agenda, removing item C3.
All right, you got a motion by Mr. Witt. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Batanti. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is supervisor and board announcements. Couple announcements. Harrison Township's Parks and Recreation Committee is hosting the Park It Movie Under the Stars event this Thursday, August 27th at Waterfront Park. The event begins at 6 p.m. with music by the George Brothers Band, starting at 6:30, and the movie Dragon 2 starting at 8:15. Or is that the?
How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Okay, good. Also, we have a pretty big event coming up this weekend. The Bassmasters Elite Fishing Tournament is being hosted at Lake St. Clair Metro Park. And also, a part of that is a festival. The Bass Brew and Barbecue Festival is also being held at Lake St. Clair Metro Park this Friday, starting this Friday, August 28th at noon, and then running through Sunday, August 30th at 6 p.m. The fishing tournament is said by some to be the Super Bowl of the bass fishing tournament, so we're very fortunate to have that here in Harrison Township on Lake St. Clair. But there will also be craft beer, concerts, ship tours, some barbecue, and all kinds of entertainment. So we encourage residents and families to stop in at the festival. Other than admission to the park, there is no festival there is no admission to the festival. For more information on these items and any other township event, you can always call the supervisor's office, 466-1445, or visit the township website, harrison-township.org. Are there any other announcements?
One more announcement. I believe the ED&C golf outing
Okay.
is September 21st, which I believe is a Monday. I don't have any more details, but I believe it's on the website, so you can find out more details.
Okay, good, good. All right, and that's at Gowney.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no other announcements, we'll move to item B1. Mr. Witt?
Yes, our office has received a request from Benvenuto's Restaurant for a new tavern liquor license. This license enables the business to sell beer and wine only for consumption on the premises. Benvenuto is located on, I think we all know, on Jefferson there, just a sort of kitty corner from the fire station. There is local approval required with this type of license. All their paperwork's in order for the liquor license application. They've gone through the planning commission, they've recommended approval. Went to the building department, they've seen no issue with issuing the liquor license. It also went to the fire department to do a review of the space and a load on occupancy. And again, there was no objections to issuing the license. This isn't an item that's subject to a quota or we only have X amount of these licenses. That's something they apply for through the state, so.
All right, and we have a representative here. I don't know if you have a desire to address the board, and
Yeah, very briefly, again, good evening. My name is Bill Listman. I'm the attorney for Benvenuto Inc. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'll be very, very brief. Benvenuto's been in the area for over 9 years. They serve some very quality food. They have a huge breakfast group that comes there every morning, but they want to expand and increase their dinner crowd. And they've been told by many of their loyal customers that in order to do this, that they really would prefer to have a beer or wine with dinner, and they just don't offer that. And so that's one of the reasons why they are really moving forward. It's tavern license. They think it's a good way to expand their business. They're committed to Harrison Township. Another thing to keep in mind is that if this tavern license gets approved, they do wish to move forward with paving the additional lot that they have purchased in order to expand their parking, and are committed to doing that with the tavern license getting approved. Just a little side note, I think it's something kind of unique and interesting. The gentleman who owns Benvenuto Inc. is actually here, Jafar Gashi. He's an immigrant, and he is now a naturalized U.S. citizen. He came here with a dream to run his own business, and he's put that dream here in Harrison Township. And he's committed to it, and he wants to grow his business here in Harrison Township. That's why he's here.
all right, great. Any questions for the applicant? No? I think, I know in casual discussion, so first let me say, you know, I frequent the restaurant, and I've probably run into mostly all of everybody here, so I think lots of folks do, and it's a great establishment, and we're happy to have it. I think that one of the concerns we did discuss was the parking, because, you know, there are times when it's, you know, pretty filled up, and so I think that's one of the things that we hope to see is, you know, we don't want a parking concern there, but I can understand that, you know, sometimes you grow the business and it gives you the funds that would make it available to make the improvements to the parking. But I think that is a small concern, I think, of mine. I can't speak for anyone else on the board. But I don't know if there's any other issues or.
And I had a similar question about the parking. I spoke with the building department. They have been in and they actually have pulled their permit for doing the installation of the parking lot. So, and in speaking with Mr. Listman, they were waiting on this. It's sort of a chicken and the egg type thing, so.
Okay, and certainly the business as it exists today was approved by planning commission, so it isn't something, you know, that snuck in that way.
So this is a 54-seat restaurant, and when I look at a tavern license, I consider it sort of like a low-impact license. I think it benefits the proprietor to offer a beer and a wine. It's not where somebody's gonna go and get drunk like a bar. So I think it's actually, you know, it actually adds value to both the restaurant and to the residents. So I think it's a good combination of food and drink without getting out of hand. So
Alright.
I'd be in favor of it.
All right. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to recommend approval for the request from Benvenuto Incorporated for a new tavern license located at 39539 Jefferson in Harrison Township, Michigan.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Prado, with support by Mr. Capral. We'll open up the floor now for public comment, so I'll ask you. Good.
Linda Karczewski, resident. I was just gonna, I'm glad you're gonna, well, if it does go through, I was gonna say, we go to the restaurant quite frequently, excuse me. And I know his wife and daughter, and I'm just gonna say it's a very nice place to go to, and the food's good, and that'd be something nice to be able to go there and have a glass of wine or something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Senstock, 31698 CN1. Was the motion made by you, Adam, or by Mr. Brado?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Was Mr. Brado? I guess I didn't hear you talking, but, okay. I'd like to basically add my support to this liquor license. The biggest problem at that site over the years, well before Benvenuto was there, was the parking situation and the parking on the additional lot next door and so on. So it's good to see that they're addressing that. I also have used this restaurant in the past, not probably as much as some of you guys, but it is a very quality place. So I'm glad to see you guys have made the motion to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Is there any other comment?
Just, is it Mr. Gacci? Just thank you, sir. I just wanted to thank you for having your business in Harrison Township. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Brado, a support by Mr. Capral to recommend approval for the request from Benvenuto Incorporated for a new tavern license located at 39539 Jefferson, right here in Harrison Township. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Brado,
Yes.
Mr. Capral,
Yes.
Mr. Batanti,
Yes.
Mr. Tominello,
Yes.
Mr. York is excused, Mr. Witt, yes, Mr. Verkest.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck.
you. Next on the agenda, item C1, introduction of an ordinance amending our code of ordinances to ban the sale and use of sky lanterns. Board members, the use of sky lanterns has been steadily increasing. The National Association of State Fire Marshals has determined that there is a serious fire and safety hazard associated with sky lanterns, which includes the potential to start unintended fires. This organization has adopted a resolution urging all states to ban the use of sky lanterns. To date, 15 states and over 18 Michigan communities have banned or restricted the use of these devices. In the board packet is an ordinance that would prohibit the use of sky lanterns within Harrison Township, allowing exceptions for ceremonies when approved by the fire marshal. I think I've seen several of our neighboring communities adopt this kind of a prohibition. And you know, I just think it's a responsible thing to do. And so before you is the proposed ordinance. I don't know if there's any questions or discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to introduce an ordinance amending the Charter Township Harrison Code Ordinances, Chapter 38, Article 1, to ban the sale of and use of sky lanterns, including for repealer severability penalties and effective date for the Charter Township of Harrison, and to publish a notice of introduction at the Charter Township of Harrison, and that the full text may be reviewed in the clerk's office during business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
There's a motion by Mr. Witt. Is there support?
Support.
All right, support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members.
Just some thoughts, you know, I guess my concern about sky lanterns, and I don't know if people are familiar with them, but they probably stand about 3 foot high, maybe 18 inches wide. And there's a flame that you light. It's actually a saturated piece of cardboard with flammable gel. And it sort of acts on the principle of a hot air balloon. But what happens is they typically, you know, if it's a windy night or, you know, if there's some gusts, it could actually flip over, they could come crash into the ground. We have a lot of wooded area, a lot of wetlands here around.
A lot of boats with
Marinas.
canvas.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I really don't even understand why people would do that in a residential area. But anyway, so I think this is a good step to protect property across the board.
Any other discussion?
Just a question as much as anything. The use of the word fire marshal, I'm not sure that pertains to us.
Well, it does, it actually, before I put this forward, I made it a point to kinda look that up to say, well, should we say fire chief?
Right.
But our ordinances are full of the term fire marshal, so I mean.
Our chief acts in
is-
the role
they're-
of the
yeah.
fire marshal.
Right, so to change it,
Good enough.
because I saw the same thing, well, is the marshal and the chief different? They are one and the same, but the ordinance, the language throughout our ordinances makes reference to the fire marshal. So, there was also, we had, well, I don't know if plagiarized is the right word, but we certainly, looked at language from other communities, and there was a reference to religious ceremonies, and I had removed that, because I don't know that we wanna delineate religious or non-religious ceremonies. For example, I think on the 10th anniversary of 9/11, there was a ceremony, that was held at Lake St. Clair Metro Park. And, it was an organized event, so for something like that, it really isn't a religious ceremony, but, some sort of commemorative ceremony, something like that. If all the conditions are in place, I think we would see it or treat it similar to the way fireworks might be handled, large-scale professional fireworks. All right, well, let's see. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello to introduce an ordinance amending the Charter Township of Harrison Code of Ordinances, Chapter 38, Article 1, to ban the sale and use of sky lanterns for repealer, severability, penalties, and effective date, and for the Charter Township of Harrison, and to publish a notice of introduction, and that the full text may be reviewed in the clerk's office during business hours, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Caprell?
Yes.
Mr. York is excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is item C2, regarding a resolution in support of House Bills 4725 and 4726. Board members, the Michigan Fireworks Safety Act took effect on January 1st, 2012. This act allowed for the sale and use or discharge of larger, louder consumer fireworks. The act also prevented local municipalities from banning the use of these fireworks for 30 days out of the year, basically the day before, the day of, and the day after 10 particular holidays as spelled out in the act. As a result of this, I certainly just about every summer and sometimes around New Year's, we get a lot of emails, we get a lot of calls from residents saying, why don't you ban this? And the fact is we cannot. The state act prohibits it. We do have the ability to prevent it for all the days except for the 30, and we have adopted that ordinance. But I'm hoping that the state changes their mind and repeals the act. What the act, not only has the act resulted in a lot of injury, a lot of noise, a lot of complaints, but it also put a burden on the township regarding enforcement with no reimbursement to do the enforcement. So, to the extent that we can, I would like to pass the resolution, which basically encourages the state to repeal the Fireworks Safety Act. I don't know if there's any discussion or a motion.
I've certainly heard numerous complaints. I've seen complaints that have been written to the township. I'm fully supportive of this and certainly hopeful that it passes, Mr. Supervisor.
All right. All right. I don't think we have to read the resolution. It was in the package, in the board packet, but ultimately, we're just encouraging. We've listed several reasons why we believe a ban is appropriate, and we encourage the state to repeal the Fireworks Safety Act.
And part of it's not even a ban, it's local control over something that we've had local control over for years, and then they took it away. Harrison Township knows how to handle Harrison Township better than anyone else, so.
Sure. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution in support of House Bills 4725 and 4726 as presented.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Capral. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Brado. I heard several people try to say it, nobody can say it fast enough, so.
I
All
can.
right.
It's the bee sting.
Yeah.
It's the bee sting, yeah.
All right, any further discussion regarding this resolution? Now, hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. York is excused. Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. And you'll prepare that and
Yeah, I will.
forward that? All right, great. All right, next on our agenda is item D, public comments. We'll open up the floor now for public comments. Or any subject, 5 minutes in length.
William Bardell, 18-year resident, new kid on the block. About a year and a half ago, an older guy came in here, and was yelling and screaming about his neighbor's tree. And I guess Kenny went in your office and was yelling and screaming about his neighbor's tree dumping branches, and we had a lot of storms, and dumping and power outages because the trees weren't maintained and everything. And this has been bothering me for quite a while, and I want to express myself. I looked at your spreadsheet that you guys want to have, let's see, 11.5% raise for the supervisor, 12.7 for the clerk, 12.7 for the treasurer, 11.11 for the deputies. Now, you say sometimes your deputy does everything, then, and the same breath, a little condescending, your deputy does nothing except being is a secretary and just answers the phone. Well, anyway, what I want to say is if a man came in my office yelling and screaming, and I was a supervisor of this township, and he was complaining about his tree, and the guy was 85 years old and fought for this country and paid taxes here for 60 years, I'd say to the Batmobile, let's go take a look. Go over to his house, go look at the man's tree. This is a people-orientated position. You're paid salary. I either say, let's jump in the car, take a ride, take a look at the problem, or I'd say, I'll see you Saturday afternoon, and I'll bring a 1-gallon plaid thermos of coffee and a chocolate cake. Sit there, look at Army pictures, look at the pictures of all his knickknacks, look at his new granite countertops, and then go look at the man's tree. You guys are responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the township. You're paid salary. You can't go take a look at a man's tree on a Saturday, cancel the golf, go take a look at the man's tree, okay? And if you can't pick up a couple branches, he's elderly, he's in distress, just set in Harrison Township volunteers, tradesmen and alike. Come out there and help out, clean up the blight, clean up the problems. I've reached out to all you guys on different items about blight in this township. 1 out of 7 has jumped in the Batmobile and taken a ride and looked at the situation. 1 guy. Remember, health, safety, and welfare. Health, we don't want turds floating down the Clinton River. When you hobnob with Hackle, tell them, what are you doing in these municipalities dumping, not increasing their retention basins? They're from the 50s. Safety. We don't want rental properties in here. We don't want vagrants walking around. We want home ownership. We want to protect our safety. Welfare, our resale values. Out of 7 guys, 1 guy jumps in the car with me and takes a ride. Those are not good numbers. Do the math. That really bothered me that you didn't go over there and have a cup of coffee with that guy. It really bothered me. I got to tell you, it really bothered me. If I was a supervisor, I'd go to his house and bring coffee and donuts. and sit with them for 3 hours. What's going on in this township?
Thank you.
Linda Karczewski. I know you guys don't want to hear about this, but something's going to be coming up in a few months. And I've been here for a number of years and asked about a certain ordinance. Can somebody tell me what's going on with it? Because it's now 8 months, going on 9 months, probably 10 months since I asked about this, and you were supposed to pass something, and I haven't heard anything. So if you did pass it, when I didn't see it and it didn't come over here for a reading, doesn't it have to, when you change an ordinance about snow removal? Can you please, because it's coming up, and it would be really nice if I know what's going on so that we can warn businesses not to put the snow on the sidewalks that we have on the main streets. And I don't want to mention businesses, but I could, number of them. And other businesses will clean the snow off the sidewalk. So there is a lot of people that do walk, run, jog. So can you tell me what's going on? Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. I can certainly say that the one resident made mention of an individual that came to see me regarding trees. The problem is, there is no enforcement mechanism that we have to tell someone to trim a tree. We don't have, I don't possess the authority to go to somebody's house and say that your neighbor doesn't like your tree, trim your tree. We do not have that authority. So it's important to understand. I empathize with the man and with a lot of different residents. And the fact is, a lot of the things that I deal with in my office are neighbors having issues with other neighbors, whether it's fences or cameras or trees or cars or parking or noise. To the extent that we have an ordinance, we enforce the ordinance. We send the ordinance officer to enforce that. And our first step in ordinance enforcement is typically a warning letter, try to encourage some discussion. What we ultimately want is compliance. The problem is that as it pertains to trees, I don't have the authority. We don't have an ordinance, and I'm not aware of ordinances in neighboring communities where we can just go to somebody's home and make them trim a tree. So I wish I could do something there, but unfortunately, we as a board have not come up with a means for enforcement of that. Regarding clearing the sidewalks, two things. One is, and I'm going to kind of point toward Mr. Tominello, I know that the Planning Commission has gone through some of the ordinances relative to other parts of our ordinances, and I know we're looking forward to a workshop or something to go over that, but I don't think sidewalks are a part of that. Is that true?
Mr. Supervisor, no, it's not. There's some ancillary ordinances that I've been working with the planner on. The snow shoveling or snow removal is one of them,
Okay.
along with garbage can storage. So we didn't have a meeting this month, so I didn't have a chance to talk to the planner, but we will have some before the snow flies, and I would say within a couple months.
Sounds good. All right, thanks. Any other board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Tominello. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Barato to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.